but we'll go ahead and get started, and we will be recording this to post online as usual. So if you don't want to be included, you can turn your camera off. You won't be captured there. Welcome to our final messy conversation of the term of the season, our winter season. We have a great conversation today on race, politics, and media, which Clarence will introduce shortly. But I wanted to welcome you all to this last messy of the season, and to let you all know we'll be back next term on April 13th. Will be the start of, hard to believe, our 23rd season of Messy Conversations in the spring. And just posted a little announcement for that in the chat there. So stay tuned for the full schedule coming out. We wanted to kick off this last Messy Conversation of the season honoring a legend of civil rights that we lost last week on Tuesday. Reverend Jesse Jackson passed away, and all of us on the organizing team knew we wanted to acknowledge this loss and pay tribute and dedicate this week a very fitting topic, as Reverend Jesse Jackson was a huge figure in the media and really brought a lot of civil rights issues to the mainstream. And we're going to start with just a very brief snippet of a speech from 1988, famous Keep Hope Alive speech at the Democratic National Convention. And then after that, have a brief moment of silence, and then we will transition to kick off our conversation on race, politics, and media. Thanks.
Right. I really do understand. Every one of these funny labels they put on you, those of you who are watching this broadcast tonight in the projects, on the corners, I understand. Call you outcast, low down, you can't make it, you're nothing, you're from nobody, subclass, underclass. When you see Jesse Jackson, when my name goes in nomination, your name goes in nomination. I was born in the slum, but the slum was not born in me. And it wasn't born in you, and you can make it. Wherever you are tonight, you can make it. Hold your head high. Stick your chest out. You can make it. It gets dark sometimes, but the morning comes. Don't you surrender. Suffering breeds character. Character breeds faith. In the end, faith will not disappoint. You must not surrender. You may or may not get there, but just know that you are qualified. And you hold on and hold out. We must never surrender. America will get better and better. Keep hope alive. Keep hope alive. Keep hope alive on tomorrow night and beyond. Keep hope alive. I love you very much. I love you very much.
Which pleases me to do. Don't nobody bring me no bad news, cause I wake up already the negatives and I'm firing up my views. So don't nobody bring me no bad news. Now if we're gonna be buddies, you better bone up on the rules, cause don't nobody bring me no bad news. You can be my best of friends as opposed to paying dues. But don't nobody bring me no bad news. Well, no bad news. No bad news. No bad news. No bad news. Now don't you ever bring me no bad news. Cause I'll make you an offer, child, that you cannot refuse. So don't nobody bring me no bad news. Now when you're talking to me, don't be crying blues. Cause don't nobody bring me no bad news. You can verbalize, vocalize, but just bring me the clues. But no, nobody bring me no bad news. Bring the message in your head, or it's something you can lose. But don't you ever, ever bring me no bad news. No, no. If you gotta bring me something, I'll make it something I can use. But don't you bring me no bad news. Well, no bad news. No bad news. Now don't you bring me no bad news. I said, cause I'll make you an offer, child, but you cannot refuse. So don't you bring me no bad news. Why?
No bad news. No bad news. That was a clip from the movie The Wiz, and it somewhat encapsulates our entire month of our celebration of Black history. And I say that because early in the month, we had a panel on dance, which was joined by Eartha Robinson and Shirley Black Brown. They were both in that scene we just witnessed, to the choreography of the late, great Louis Johnson, who we also mentioned during that conversation. Our second presentation for the Black History Month was on fashion. And in The Wiz, if you've seen The Wiz, and I invite you to see it if you get a chance, it had a scene of Emerald City where they showed you all of the great Black supermodels at the time. Iman, Beverly Johnson, Ronaldo White, Alan Cephas, Billy Blair, they were all in that scene, all of our top Black models. So bad news, bad news. When The Wiz came out, bad news. No one who didn't look like me rather, could accept the fact that it was a reimagining of The Wizard of Oz. Bad news, bad news. The good news is it was one of the largest ever centered Black cast in cinematic history. Bad news, bad news, bad news. I'm Clarence R. Williams, and I'm welcoming you to our final Black History installment on race, politics, and media. Bad news, bad news. I am living, I don't know about you guys, but I'm living in a constant newsreel of bad news. Journalists are being assaulted, press is being limited to what they can cover, and journalists are being arrested in America. Is our First Amendment rights being jeopardized? Well, this afternoon, we're going to explore that with our illustrious panel. And leading that discussion is one of our favorite professors here at Antioch, who's also a journalist. Erin Aubrey Kaplan is joining with the Los Angeles Sentinel's David G. Brown, who was with us last month in a conversation on race, politics, and cartoons. So, Erin, take it away.
Thank you, Clarence. Thank you for that introduction. Thank you for that clip. It's so toe-tapping. You know, Black people have a way of turning crisis into wonderful music, uplifting music. And was that Mabel King? Who was the?
That was the late, great Mabel King. Yeah. Great actress. Yes, that was she. Playing Eveline. Eveline.
And I couldn't help but think as she performed Eveline, actually Donald Trump now, who is declaring that nobody bring him no bad news. And we'll discuss what that is. But welcome to everybody. I'm very glad to be here with everyone, with my illustrious colleague, David Brown, whose name is not possible to misspell. Anyway, I just want to, we don't have a lot of time. We have a lot to talk about, but I'll just start out by telling you really quickly, I am a journalist, as Clarence said. I started out in independent media way back in the late 80s with independent black news magazine called Accent LA. So that's how I got started in journalism. And it was a wonderful experience. It was actually started by a friend of mine who worked for the legacy media, the LA Times, who thought that the LA Times did a very poor job of covering black communities. So he started his own independent publication, probably against the rules. I later moved to the LA Times. So I went from black independent media to being a black journalist in legacy media or in mainstream media at the LA Times. But honestly, I saw my role as the same in both spaces, which was to basically to report more deeply on the black community, on not just the black community, which really is a way of saying reporting on democracy, reporting on the health of democracy, reporting on this kind of, the health of communities, the health of justice, how far we're moving towards that. And I very naively thought that's kind of that was going to be our permanent North Star. We were going to continually move towards this justice, towards a more perfect union, I guess, for lack of a better phrase. I have to tell you, I never imagined we would be here in this space where media overall, not just black media, or black people, but media itself has become completely demonized. And I'll start with the bad news. First of all, I mentioned the LA Times. The LA Times is less than half of what it was when I joined there in 1992, which is an indication of how media, kind of the financial health of journalism right now. There has been what I call a massive extinction event. In the last, I think, 25 years, we have lost half local papers. And that includes black media, but it is really dire. And the overall problem is that journalism, which newspapers, whether, the traditional newspapers, which have been privately funded for as long as they've been around, got sold. Nobody wanted to own them anymore. So what we have is media concentrated in the hands of billionaires who have no interest in kind of performing the public service of newspapers to our democracy. That's the general situation. I now work for a nonprofit news organization called Capital in Maine. So we're moving towards nonprofit, but we're not moving fast enough. In the meantime, we have we're at a real inflection point in this country. And frankly, the only people, well, not people, but the only sort of way we can keep telling the truth is through journalism, which despite its bad finances, is still very important, is still very more essential than ever. That's where we are with that. And then we have, of course, the fragmentation of media. We hear a lot about this. In 1992, when I started, there was no social media. I think there was the internet, of course, but it was sort of in its infancy or its early middle age. And so we were not getting news from social media. And I think just the very word news has become very fraught, very, very contentious, very debated. Like, what is news? Is it people just sort of putting out opinions on social media, et cetera? So we don't even agree quite what news is. And we choose what to believe. We are in a period that we call, I can't believe we're actually here, but it's true. We are in a post-truth moment. First, it was post-fact. People were sort of just believing in their own facts, which sounded crazy enough. But now we actually have something that I call post-truth. There's just a truth people, have in their minds, and they're not going to be swayed from it. It won't matter how many facts are applied or discovered or read. And that is because politically, we're in a moment of cult. The Republicans are not really a functioning political party. They are a cult of Trump. Trump is not the problem, but there is a problem of cult with all the things that people believe in as truth, i.e., we don't need diversity anymore. We are, a multicultural nation is not what people want, which is a very disconcerting idea to me, but that's where we are. I'll just say, to me, the biggest issue, the biggest bad news, and all this bad news to me, and I'll let David speak about this and give his opening remarks, is that the media, we still have the New York Times, Post was just decimated, as you might or might not know. It's lost a third of the reporters it had left. And of course, Black press continues to be underfunded. So we're losing more and more media. But the media that is left, and there are a lot of people doing great work, trying very hard to keep up just with what's happening every single day. But the problem for me is like the New York Times, for example, which I've written for, it's not telling us the truth. What is the truth? It is that we are being run, this country doesn't really have a functioning federal government. We have a government that is ruled by an ideology of white supremacy. It is very upfront about it. There's no debate about it. I've been saying this a long time. I'm an opinion writer, and really, I should be put out of work because there's no more debate. There's no more opinion in the nature of what's going on. This is where we are. But the media, it seems very reluctant still at this point to tell the public kind of every day in many different ways that we are in a crisis, that we are under threat. We know democracy is under threat. Why is it under threat? Because we are living under the rule of a anti-government government that simply does not believe in the truth, does not believe in democracy, works actively against people of color, and frankly against the American people. And I think this is the silver lining. This is the positive news that we can take from all this, is that I think more Americans of all colors are realizing in a real way that this anti-Black, multi-ethnic society ideology hurts all of us. We heard Jesse Jackson say it, and I was very moved to hear him speak to everyone, everyone, all Americans. I mean, he's been, kind of almost ridiculed as a Black leader by the conservative right. I've heard him called on Fox News and other organizations a race hustler. That's what they call all. In other words, justice is just a Black issue, and it's just something people are doing money for, and they're very, very cynical about it. But looking at Jesse Jackson and just made me kind of remember that this is a very, very powerful idea, that we really are all struggling under the same inequality. And I think that's very, very true right now. And more Americans are finally starting to realize it. And hopefully that will lead towards lead us back towards a positive change that I think media is here to drive. So I think, and I'll just say one last thing. We saw the recent arrest of two journalists, Don Lemon, who well known, and Georgia Fort, who is less well known, but a great journalist in her own right. I think it was no accident that these two journalists were Black, that they were on the scene reporting something, and were arrested for it. I think that many journalists are starting to be harassed now, but I think that message that sends, that the actual journalists, who have been arrested for the first time, I don't know, maybe in American history, are Black. And it sends a message that not only are journalists not allowed to tell the truth, but Black journalists especially pose a real threat, because we have traditionally, that's been our role traditionally, is to tell the truth, to be the counter to the spin, or to the obfuscations of the government or the people. So I think those two are being made, or they're trying to be made an example of. Unfortunately, both of them have doubled down on their commitment to tell the truth, which I think I'm happy to see other media organizations are really supportive of that, because they realize that they're all under threat in the same way. So it's kind of, I wrote this recently in a column that may be in the chat, that it's ironic and very fitting that now, so the face of the fight for the First Amendment, at least right now, are Black faces, which is very appropriate to me. So finally, the white media is caught up with us. So it's a long time, but at least I think we're headed in the right direction in terms of coming together and fighting a common enemy, which is lies, not just lies, but kind of the recasting of history itself. We're at the end of Black history in February, here. And really the fight has been, and I'm sure you've discussed this before, the actual thing we're fighting, it's not just for the right for media to tell the truth. It's for the right for history to continue, to tell the truth about history itself. We are living under a regime that removes markers of history, wants to literally just, literally erase things. And that is not a metaphor. That is what is actually going on. So the media, has to be that counter, has to constantly point all these things out, and not just point them out, but keep connecting the dots and keep saying this is a racist regime that is trying to make us all live under what the Confederacy lived under. It's almost like the Confederacy has been extended to the entire United States. And so we have to be as the first writers of history, journalists as the first writers of history, get the first, what to say, they write the first draft of history. We have to constantly write these drafts, and we cannot stop. We just cannot stop, despite funding, despite other issues. So I'm going to stop there. And David, you just want to see if you have any opening remarks or anything.
Well, first I want to say thank you for coming and thank you for that introduction and also framing the conversation. So I'm a political cartoonist and I've been working for the Los Angeles Sentinel newspaper, which is an African American newspaper, for over 2 decades. And I think that the media itself, and all of media really, um, has. I mean, there was a time when you know the LA Times was the Bible for what was going on in Los Angeles and in the world. And I think with the invert of social media and the internet, a lot of people are getting their news. I mean, I'm guilty of it too. Most of the news and information I get is from the internet, and that sometimes can be framed with as I think one Republican framed it, alternative facts and misinformation, I guess, to put it mildly. And I even and I think the other factor is with social media and other ways of people getting their content and information, the newspaper itself has, demise has been on its demise. And so they don't necessarily have the advertising or the resources that they've had in the past for us to rely on it. And as you pointed out, Aaron, you also have these media and social media organizations are run by these billionaires, and so they're more interested in getting eyeballs and just like there was an old saying by journalists talking about if it bleeds, it leads. So the more dynamic and the more compelling or dramatic the issues are, people are drawn to that kind of information. And I think that Donald Trump is masterful at getting attention. I mean, and distractions and those types of things. And I think it's really sad to see that. But I think aside from that, I also think we also live in a country that I mean, racism has been deeply embedded in how this country was formed. And I think that racism has not really gone away. And I think that there's interest in keeping, that division and that chaos and that legacy alive. And I think that that's part of the challenge. And it's also part of the challenge for me as a political cartoonist to try to, I try to integrate, history, truth telling, and just kind of exposure to the underlying truths about this country that aren't always necessarily upfront and it's not really. I mean, I when I think about what I learned about history when I was in high school, and there was very little about Black history, and so that frames how, especially as young people, how we frame the world and how we see the world and our role in it. And I just think it's really important that we tell the truth and tell the real history. And this one other comment I want to make is just in terms of where we are as a country, and specifically, with Donald Trump. I think that a big percentage of America was not really comfortable with 8 years of Obama. Even though he was articulate, well educated, family man, no criminal record or anything challenging in terms of that. And still, with that, a lot of white America was not totally comfortable with him. And that's why you see out of his 8 years, and then we got a Donald Trump. And I think part of that also has to do with the American culture. And I visited other countries, like, and I'll give an example of China and Japan, and they value the elderly. So they cherish what the elderly have to say and their value and their life experiences. And they value educators. So they're really interested in discipline. And when you look at America's culture, you see that celebrity is one of the most important things that we see. I mean, when you see the news now, it's all about celebrities and what they're doing. And then it's about money, and I think that there are other things that are much more important in life and in our culture than money. And I think that we're especially the young people are growing up in a culture where those are the things that are being emphasized in terms of that. And I think that really needs to change if we really want to change the nature of this country and really live up to the promise in the Declaration of Independence. So
Yeah, here we are, always defending the Declaration, right? It's always up to we have the burden of idealism. But you bring up a very good point. I want to say you pointed out the 8 years of Obama, which seemed. I mean, we know there was a lot of symbolism there, but it was really symbolism, very powerful symbolism. And the media, this is an example of what the media does not do these days, including, I mean, black media actually keeps this memory. But, and he wasn't president, it wasn't that long ago. But immediately when he became president, the conservative right started to reorganize. They started to sort of create the anti-Obama party, which was the Tea Party, remember? And so right away, right after he got inaugurated, I think it was Mitch McConnell, who was then Speaker of the House, said, our goal is to get him out of office. Now, he hadn't even done anything.
Exactly. I mean, I think I could. That was a quote that he made. Is that their goal was to get Obama out of office, make him a one-term president. I think that's the way he framed it.
So what I think that what we're not reminded of, what the media does not seem to want to remind everybody of, is of that. I mean, that's just one thing. But what that speaks to is not just that has to do with power. That has to do with America, like you mentioned, America's reluctance to let let not just Obama be president and have a black man occupy the White House, which is cognitive dissonance to a lot of white people, but to really share in the power, right? To really have that living up to that declaration you mentioned, which is that we are all somebody, as Jesse Jackson said. It sounds hokey, but it's really what the promise is, as what I always believed. So I think that, but there is great resistance to that. Always been great resistance to that ideal, and that showed up real early in Obama's presidency. And how did Donald Trump get his start? He got his start politically by trashing Obama, saying he was not one of us,
not an American citizen. Whole
immediately. Here's what happened: black people immediately knew what that meant. In fact, they were bracing for it. Right? We were so glad Obama had won, but we also at the same time braced ourselves because we knew what the response would be. Sure enough, the political response was, let's get this N-word out of office. So, but the media, I think, because we have been in a weird way trained, and I say we journalists, I'll just speak broadly, journalists, you're not supposed to opinionate, you're not just supposed to report the facts, just tell what happened. At the same time, they didn't report what was right in front of them, which is, this is a very racist, a very racialized politics that's happening. This was back in 2009, right? I'll never forget when Obama started to do those town hall meetings about his proposed healthcare reform. Right. I will never forget people showing up at those town halls, furious, spitting on John Lewis, who was an American hero. Yeah. And I thought to myself, what is going on here? This is a town hall about healthcare. And these people were losing their minds about this very modest proposed reform. And I thought to myself, this is not good. This energy was there, and Tea Party harnessed it. It eventually turned into Donald Trump and MAGA. But the media does not chart that. He does not chart that recent history. Yeah. It does not return to it. And to me, it's very obvious to you. I think this is where media falls down. does not connect those dots for us to tell us over and over, this is where this came from. This is how we got here, right? This is not about the price of eggs. Okay, it's not that people are angry about the economy. They are, but the deeper anger and the motivating anger has always been racial. Has always been who belongs in this country, who doesn't, who deserves to lead. That's what animates our politics, and it has gotten us to where we are. And so I think that I still do it. I mean, I point that out, but truly, everybody has to understand this. And this has been my frustration as a journalist, as an American citizen, really, that we fail to connect these dots, and the media has a real responsibility to do that. Would you agree?
I would agree. And interesting, you talked about Obama and his health care plan, and what's interesting, I was watching they were doing interviewing people about this health care plan that Obama had proposed. And if they said that, well, this is I forgot what they called the initial plan.
It's something wonky, like the
But anyway,
affordability care.
affordable health plan. Let's say that, right? And then they asked the same people, well, what do you think about Obamacare? Oh no, no, I don't want Obama. But when they framed it as this is health care for all, they agreed with it.
Right.
But then they attached Obama's name to it, and then it became something negative. And even now, I don't understand why the Republican Party has spent decades trying to get rid of Obamacare, but they didn't have anything better to replace it.
Well,
And then they'll say, we're working on it. You'll have it in a couple of weeks. And that has never happened. I mean, if you're going to destroy this Obamacare or whatever you want to call it, then you want to replace it with something better. But they just want to get rid of it.
Okay, but listen, you're right. But this is not about policy. I want to stress to you and this is not about policy. It's always been about racial. By racial grievance, I mean white grievance. The problem is also we don't really think of white anger. We don't define whiteness as a race. So these things.
That's true.
But the reason the party can keep threatening to destroy healthcare and not replacing it with anything is because they keep their base focused on racial grievance. If you focus on racial grievance, white racial grievance, you don't have to do anything else. Yeah. That is enough. We have seen that, right? I will remind us of what Lyndon Johnson said back in the 1960s when he signed the Civil Rights Act, which the first thing Trump did was over Lyndon Johnson's executive order related to that in 1965. But Johnson said, and he was a Southerner, right? And he said, we have lost the South. The South is not going to tolerate the Civil Rights Act. And he said, and the way to keep them in line, the way that they're going to be distracted, they're going to be promised, they're going to be sold whiteness. They're going to be told that they're better than the best black man. And if you keep them if you send out that message, they don't mind. You could pick their pocket all day long, and they won't care. You don't have to give them anything except the sense that whiteness is something that makes them better than everybody else. That sounds really simple, but we can see it's worked perfectly.
Well, to your point, you look at what Trump ran on, which was about immigration, and essentially he was saying that, if you weren't white, then you don't belong in this country. I mean, in a broader perspective. And so that was, and it was as if the immigrants were taking something from them. And they were okay with that, with the border and how they're being treated, and that was a distraction from all the other stuff that he was doing. I mean, now I look at how Trump is lining his pockets with taxpayers' money.
Okay, stop. What did Lyndon Johnson say? You can pick their pockets right in front of their faces, but as long as you keep telling them you're better than all those brown and black people out there, they won't care. Now I hope he's wrong about that. I hope Lyndon want to see him be proved wrong. But I think about that and it makes me very uneasy. But I just want to point to one thing that I thought about yesterday in terms of the um let's give Black Lives Matter great credit for furthering social media as a tool of kind of citizen journalism.
Right.
Everyone now recording things on cell phones, which
Yeah.
citizen journalism has been very important, as we have seen in Minnesota with the
I
ice.
agree.
And so that was advanced very much by the Black Lives Matter movement, going back to 2013 with Trayvon Martin. Remember, actually back to 1992 when I started in journalism. What happened? That citizen, the guy who videotaped Rodney King being
Rodney
beaten.
King. Yeah.
Remember? Now that wasn't a cell phone; that was an actual, recorder. But that technique or that kind of ubiquity of citizens recording the truth has been, I think, really, really important, and it's been pioneered by Black people. And it's been, it's been invaluable. There are many things wrong with social media, but those kinds of videos, which you cannot refute, you cannot. I mean, it's just, recorded from many different angles. It stands. It speaks for itself, right? They speak for themselves, and I would say that has been a very good development in the press, especially for Black folk, because it has brought out truth in a way that the truth had not been brought out before, right? So I just wanted to point that out.
Well, the other thing, and let me just piggyback on what you just mentioned, is there's a lot of the strategies in the movement of the civil rights movement that has helped all Americans. I mean, help women's rights, So I think the credit is not given to the foundation of the civil rights movement and how important it was to benefit all Americans in this country.
That is absolutely true, and I think that is becoming clearer and clearer. Remember, back now, let's go to even more recent history, 2020, which seems like a million years ago, and that was only 6 years ago. In 2020, we were at a very different moment. We were all Americans of all colors and all persuasions were out in the streets in the middle of a pandemic, just basically advocating for racial reform, right?
Yeah.
I never seen anything like that in my lifetime. And so I think that was a very powerful moment, but it immediately frightened the conservative powers that be, who know that the power of people coming together like that, right, is a great threat to their power. So immediately back in 2020, at the same moment that we were having this sort of racial awakening across the board, Trump, remember, he was president then.
Yeah, and he talked about how it will go away in the spring.
He immediately demonized the protesters,
Right.
criminals, and not just Black people, because there were everybody was out. So everybody got demonized, especially people in big cities, as criminals, etc. This is what's called a media narrative that the right started to sell. Right, all these people, they're just criminals and they're looters and they're anti-democratic and they're Antifa, except all that, right? And one thing America buys, and this is very linked to white supremacy, is law and order, right? The law and order narrative. It works like a charm, right? And so right after we had this, I think an amazing moment, more than a moment in 2020, then I guess what you would call the backlash, although I don't think that's never a backlash. It's always like there in the air. Started to set in, and people started to be very afraid of ideas like reforming funding for police,
Right.
or giving people power, and especially brown and Black people power. White people and other people were part of that movement, but the face was still very much Black, brown. So now, but my hope is that we can't unlearn what we have learned, right? We went through that. We came to a consciousness, and I would like to believe that we know what we know, and we know what the power of that kind of movement is, right? Even though we don't have the money on our side, even though we're at the billionaire class seems to be running the country very openly, but I still believe that they live in fear, of that people movement. They live in fear.
Well, I agree. And even if you look at the facts, most of the crimes are done by white males in this country.
Especially the white males in the White House. But no, that also,
I mean, that's the facts. I mean, that's facts.
well, David, wait a minute. Facts. We're post-fact.
Well, speaking of facts, bad news, bad news. Your illustrious president, as we honor Jesse Jackson today, he has ruled that Jesse Jackson's body not lie in the Capitol rotunda as past heroes and statesmen have done in the past. Bad news, bad news. He also refused to allow the United States flag to be lowered at half-mast in tribute to Jesse Jackson, but it was okay for Charlie Kirk.
Yeah, exactly.
By the way, let's just.
Go ahead.
No, you're right, Clint. Thank you for saying that. And let's just put a point on that, a period on that. So Charlie Kirk was an avowed racist. You know, he was antithetical to Jesse Jackson. And so, in case anybody, again, this is out in the open. This is not anything we have to dig for. This is the kind of ideology we are living under, all of us, right? And so, I'd be surprised if Trump had allowed that to happen. And to be perfectly honest, in some bizarre way, maybe not that bizarre, I am glad that he's not allowing this. I'm glad he's continuing to be racist, because then we know what we're facing, right? The older black folks that always tell me, back in the days of Jim Crow, I knew what I was facing. I knew what I was facing. I was under no delusions. So I think that because Trump is incapable of empathy, or changing his mind, we continue to see these kinds of insults and disrespect. But it is a continuous wake up call for all of us, right? You think you can go back to sleep? You think you can go back doing your little thing and not being bothered by all this? It is in our faces all the time, and it hurts all of us all of the time, right? So look, and whatever Trump does, it doesn't prevent Jesse Jackson from being an American hero.
Right.
It's like the Grinch who stole Christmas. He took away all the toys and the food, and guess what? Christmas came anyway, right? So I think that we have to not expect anything less than complete reprehensible behavior, not just from Trump. Remember, it's not just him. It's this entire government, which is kind of amazing. An entire party of people with this ideology that this is what we have to fight, and definitely what the media has to keep reminding people. This is your government. Is this what you want? Is this? And I would like to believe the answer, by and large, is no. I don't think most American people, I think they hate this, but they don't know how to fight it, because white people in this country are not taught to fight racism. They don't like it, but they're not taught to passionately stand up and say no, right? That is, I think, the true problem. And I think the reason why the media, the legacy media, the mainstream media, is not as aggressive with this as it should be. Remember, I'm old enough to remember Watergate, okay, in mid-70s. And it was very clear that the press covered this as a crisis. They covered it as a moral scandal, right? An affront to democracy. It was very clear. There were a few people who dared to disagree, but it was very clear what was at stake. We need to have a similar attitude. The media needs to have a similar attitude about this. And unfortunately, like David was saying earlier, but this gets to the very root of the country, gets to the very psychological foundation of the country. So it's almost like if I step out there and tell the truth and connect the dots, my whole world will crumble. I might lose friends. I might get into fights. Who knows? I mean, you might spontaneously combust. I don't know. We've not been here, but we have to have that kind of courage. Nobody wanted to be here. Believe me, I just wanted to retire and live my life and figure that the hard work had been done in this country. But the hard work has been done, but there is a lot more to do with a lot of things.
Well, I also think that
hard work. What would you say to future journalists, journalism students, given the landscape that we're now facing? What would you say to them as they approach this new generation? And as you think about that question, I open the floor to others who have questions also. And I know Asa has a question as well, but please share with us what you would say to journalism students right now, given these circumstances that we're all dealing with.
David, you go first because you're like mentor in chief. So you go ahead.
Oh, no, no, I would just say that to to understand history. I mean, because I think, I taught high school for over a decade, and young people, they don't really know the history. So understand history, and also just I think an awareness of what's going on. I think it's easily for, especially with this next generation, is they're distracted by the celebrity and what's going on in the social media trends and that type of thing, and really go back and look at history, because what's happening now is not new. I mean, you look at the strategies that and go back and read 1984, and you see why they're doing the things they're doing right now.
Yeah. And I would add to that, David, that is why Trump is attacking the universities and the educational institutions, because they know, and MAGA knows, that's what, learning things is dangerous, right? So, but I would just add to that, as dispirited as I get about the future of journalism, I also used to advise journalism students at university level, and young people are very interested in journalism still. They are very interested in as a profession, as sort of a public service. And I get heartened by that. I mean, it's a very tough landscape, but that does not seem to deter those young people who are interested, who understand how essential it is. We just have to, I just hope and pray that there is a financial structure that assures journalism in the country. We have not, like I said, we're not there yet. But there
Well,
is.
I would also like to add to this, because since I retired from teaching high school, I started working with elementary and middle school kids. And I think at that stage of their development, it's really important for them to encourage them to express themselves and to learn, because at that age group, they're formulating, their role in the world. And I just think it needs to be really important to encourage them to develop their own voices.
Asa, would you like to ask your question?
Yeah, thanks, Clarence, and thank you both, Aaron and David. Covered a lot of ground. And I wanted to go to a point. I think, Aaron, you kind of just mentioned it, but I was thinking more about the idea of like the economic structure that has traditionally funded news, and that you would subscribe to a newspaper, it would show up on your doorstep. Now information is so free flowing, like we can all get more information than we could ever process just logging online. And so it kind of changes the economic structure. And to David's experience, like working with a Black newspaper that's local, like, do you see that as a route that people might turn more towards these local and like community focused pieces? Or what do you see?
Well, let me make a couple points. Local newspapers are becoming a whole lot more prevalent and successful, because people want to know what's going on in their backyard and their area and their particular demographic. So I think that, the bigger conglomerates are losing some of their audience, because people want to know what's going on, within their community and within their particular segment of society. And I think that that's really very important. But I think that, and this is just my opinion, that the Black media could do a little better job with reporting the truth, and that could be for a number of reasons. I mean, advertisers, and you got politicians, so you got those people that you have to appeal to. But I do see long term that community newspaper and community news is going to become more prevalent and more important.
Yeah, I would just add to Asa that, the problem overall is that print journalism worked because the advertising was profitable. I mean, it's that simple. But the advertising, from what I understand, what I've read from people I know in the business, does not translate online. Everybody's online.
Yeah.
Just don't make the money. So the revenue model, it sort of vanished, And that has been the real problem. And of course we have other things going on. The retailers are disappearing, right? Physical, retailers that advertised. You're going to close Food for Less now. Big Lots is gone. 99-cent store is gone. So we have not transitioned from the model that was successful for print that is no longer successful. It doesn't work online. And the problem with the online too is you get all these paywalls and people just are not going to read what they have to pay for. It's not like getting a paper delivered. We understand we pay for a paper being delivered. Who wants to pay? You go to an article you want to read, you're like, oh, I'm not going to pay that. And you don't read it. It's behind a paywall. Now, I understand you have to charge money for that, but that's actually a turnoff online because we feel like the internet should be open and accessible for everybody. So we have not. So in the meantime, like you say, so we have all this information. A lot of it we don't have access to readily unless you subscribe. Who wants to subscribe to 100 different things when you just want to read one article, right? So that's a problem. But David's right though. There is a rise of like very small local papers. The Black Press, which has always been underfunded, I think could do a much better job of putting resources into reporting. Not, it doesn't. We don't see enough of that, and that would be great if they could do that because we really need it.
Okay.
We have a question from Ms. McDonald. If she'd like to ask, and also and comments they might to expand upon before we leave.
Yes. So my question was, what do you suggest to the journalists covering Black media in predominantly white states? Because some of them usually resort to social media due to the extreme racism of trying to get the message out there in print. And social media is kind of like the last and only resort, sort of.
Okay, you're speaking of Black reporters in like red states. Is that what you mean, or just Black people?
Yes.
Okay. Well, yeah.
Oh, good luck with that.
Well, we've been demonizing social media, but it does have a good, in terms of getting out information, viable information that people need to see. It is a great tool. It's just that it's been ill. It's been used to do the opposite. But that's not, that's not its fault. So I would say, sure, of course, social media is a great way to spread the word, to put out news. It just has to be quality news. It has to, it should be something worth reading and not some polemic or not some, just hate-filled stuff that we tend to associate with social media. But absolutely, it is a great tool that way.
And if I can add to that, so as a political cartoonist, when I put my and I'll give you an example. Sometimes, like I did a political cartoon about Condoleezza Rice, under Bush, and it wasn't very flattering, and I got lots of hate mail. So I would just say that you just have to have a thick skin and be prepared for that. Even now I get some of my cartoons blocked or pushback and trolls, because they don't agree with my position or even, the cartoon and how I may have framed it or maybe the person that I'm criticizing. So I would just say just prepare for that. But I also think that learn from that experience and grow from it. I mean, when I used to teach, one of the most challenging things with young people is that they're afraid of failure. And I think sometimes out of those challenges, you can grow and learn from those experiences. So I would just say keep doing it and you'll figure out a way to make it work for you.
I believe Natalie has the next question before we wrap up. Natalie, would you like to ask your question as we're wrapping up? Okay, well, perhaps we will take another question. Brad, we have another question.
Yeah, Aaron has one.
Hey, sorry, did you mean me?
Hi, Ryan.
Uh, hey, good to see you, Aaron.
You.
Uh, I was wondering, y'all were talking about um, how a lot of our education and media hasn't really given us kind of like the actual truth of the history of like what's been going on. And so I'd be curious if y'all had suggestions, if y'all had like specific media outlets, journalists that you like to listen to actually get the truth about what's going on in kind of our history.
Great question. I look at the aggregate news sites like LA Progressive, Portside is a good one. Word in Black is a good one. I mean, The Nation, kind of, I guess the expected, expect I'd say, but they're doing really important work. Even the Atlantic, worth reading. But yeah, I mean, you know, uh, it's just kind of depressing to realize all those sites, all those outlets, um, money wise, are no match for Fox News. That's the problem. I don't watch Fox News. I don't listen to that stuff, but I know it's incredibly coordinated, incredibly powerful. It's been growing for decades. So did not happen overnight. That's a whole other discussion. The left, the progressive left, has always struggled with funding and money. I guess democracy just is not profitable or whatever. But I would say but there are good sites with good information, and I kind of swear by LA Progressive, Portside, even the Atlantic. You just have to kind of, that's the thing. The internet makes you work. You have to find these things. There's also a lot of good independent online sites locally, like in LA, just in LA alone. There's an LA, there's a local journalism initiative that puts out great stuff. They're smaller, but they're out there. And so, you just have to look for them.
So as we come to the end of our hour, I would invite those of you who want to hang around for a few short minutes to take on a few more questions. We will do so, but we would like to remind everyone we will return after the break on April the 13th. So please join us back April 13th for the next Messy Conversation. Otherwise, enjoy your break and we'll see you next time. There was another question in the chat, Brad. I can't really tell now who that was, but please. I believe Jacqueline had a.
Hi.
I believe
Just to say,
How's everybody doing? This is make my hair curl tighter. But it's so good to see Professor Kaplan and Mr. Brown. I just had a quick question and to see what your thoughts were briefly on this topic, because within the within the Black community, these are one of the things that's coming up that we haven't seen done or haven't seen discussed as much outside of it. And that is the tally of Trump. I was one of them. And for a quick explanation, just someone having a site that lists the lies one by one so we know what number we're at. And I know that sounds crazy, but I think it would give, if people saw it in a different way, and they were talking about it in a different way. I was like, if we were at 1,029, they would be like, dang, by the age of 7, maybe I told this many. And then after I became a conscious child, I started to slow down. But this person, is at this extreme number. And another part of that was also the excuse me, I'm losing my voice. The other discussion has been all of this history. The only purpose to erase this history is not just for it not to be available, But because the civil rights movement had so many documented action plans, if you look at Jesse Jackson, if you look at Pete Newton, if you look at Martin Luther King and Abernathy, and they documented so many things as far as their process for fighting for civil rights. And it's not necessarily the history someone was we were speaking to the other day, but the action plan that we all need because people don't study history, regardless of your racial background. So I was just wondering if you could speak to those two things.
I'll say real quick because I know we're at the end.
Okay.
I repeat, if you're invested in white supremacy, you don't care how many lies are told to you. White supremacy is itself a lie. Okay, so I don't think that matters. Unfortunately, for people who support Trump, lies are just part of it. I would, they should matter. Of course, they should matter. Of course, and that a president tells them openly and brazenly should matter. But this is the horror. This is unfortunately not the case, or it's not the case enough, right? So that's all I'll say about that. I mean, I don't know what the other part of you talked about a plan.
Well, I would just add to that I think they're encouraged to lie and give information because they feel like they're losing something. They're losing this battle over, this white supremacy, and so they feel like they're losing something. So they're at a time when they have to make up stories just to hold on to what they feel they value.
Yeah, and by the way, we are. I mean, I hate to be. I'm not. I don't think I'm not being dramatic. I wish I were. We're in a psychological war here, and the first casualty of war is truth, right? So you have to remember, racism is itself a lie. That black people have tails, or that immigrants are stupid, or that's just all. That's all. You're right. It's fifth grade stuff, but it's also very adult stuff, and people believe it. So they now have a platform for that belief, and it's they're feeling a lot of power with it. So we have to counter. That's all. And I'll just leave you with one thought. I really believe there are more Americans who are opposed to this than Americans who are for it. But it's the tyranny of the minority right now. And so the majority has to get it together. The majority has to unify more than it has. And that has always been the great American question. Can we come together to sort of realize this vision of ourselves that has been articulated from the beginning, but it's also been debased since the beginning. So this is the moment we have to answer that question.
I mean, the fact that racism is something that was man-made, created. I mean, our DNA is all the same. Our pigment is different, but racism is something that was created.
Yeah, well, it's very real. Yeah, very real, and we have to make it irrelevant. And we'll just have to just rely on the math. Remember, there are more of us than there are of them. So I don't think we should focus on trying to change people's minds. I'm sorry, that sounds cynical. I think you just focus on supporting the people who believe what you believe and make that the united front.
Can we take one final question?
Sure, one more.
Sure.
Natalie has a comment. Do you want to say your comment, Natalie? I can say it too. She said she's in the middle of the library, so
good for her.
Thank you. Thank you for posting it. She said, fear creates amnesia and community eliminates fear. I feel like that is an important idea for us to move through this incredible conversation with. And
I agree.
I've been watching this is it Tallarico, the Texan guy who is talking about grassroots and talking to Christians, and that idea of going to our subgroups, our interests, our identities, who do we connect with, and really thinking about who is speaking to us that is having a different talk than what we're seeing in the media that is truly being influenced, just like tech, by Trump's ideas, and they're afraid. They're afraid to keep people just asking questions on the media, the mainstream media, which I don't think has ever really been helpful to us in politics. But I thank you for illuminating these resources that I'm glad to say I've picked and choosed a lot of these sources. And also, it's so hard to follow the same person anymore because there's so many folks writing, and often people will just go off on a tangent and then it feels lost, the main point. So finding a place where all of this can live seems challenging too, but the other media sources do it. I think about the argument between Drake and how the music got the young people so interested in a conversation about racism, and whatever ways it works, I think that's what needs to be focused. So thank you.
Well, as we conclude, Rosa is reminding us that all these resources and articles will be placed on the website at the Messy Conversation site. So feel free to jump in. There's some other articles there, some written by Aaron, one in particular written about David by Aaron, and some short videos that we also posted about the livelihood of
Uh-uh.
I think we lost you, Clarence.
Yeah. Oh, there you go. No. You lost me there for a moment. Okay. Well,
Well, maybe you can put it in the chat.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. We lost your last two sentences, Clarence. Natalie's suggesting that looking at the posters from the 60s that locals made and put on the electric poles are very powerful, and I think definitely have some of the same messages we need to promote in here now.
yeah, I think there's a place called the Center for the Study of Political Graphics. I don't know if any of you.
Oh yeah, I'm familiar. Yeah, they're here in Culver City area, and it's a great place. You can visit it too.
The Center for the Study of Political Graphics archives all that.
Cool.
So I'd like to thank you for giving me this opportunity. And Clarence and Aaron, it's always great to chat with you too.
Great to talk to you guys. I feel a little inspiration, and I need that every day.
I do too.
Thank you all for listening and for participating. Great to see some of the former students and just a community. You know, just when I feel like we're all out there twisting in the wind by ourselves. Truly, you know, when you get with the community, even for an hour, it really is fortifying, and it makes you realize that it's like what Ralph Nader says: we do have the power. You know, we really do, and it's very easy to feel like that's not. But it's not. But it's truly just propaganda to say that we nothing we can do, and our views don't matter, and you know. Again, you know, the narrative of people like us is very, very powerful, and to the point where people with a lot more money than you and me are trying to suppress it. So, well, that should tell you a lot. So let's, you know. So thanks for being here and listening in. I really appreciate it.
Thank you,
And
Aaron.
Aaron,
when are you going to teach again?
I'm sorry.
Oh, hey, Elaine. I'm teaching. I'm finishing a bridge right now.
Oh, okay.
I just did a workshop a couple weeks ago, so I'm still around. We'll have to catch up. I just feel like
let's talk soon.
Absolutely.
Thank you for today, you and David. Appreciate it.
Oh, you're welcome.
Oh, you're welcome. Yeah, it's my pleasure.
And I would like to think that, you know, this challenging time we're going through is going to bring people together. I mean, that's my optimistic point of view. So.
Okay, don't say challenging. Say fascist, because that's what's happening.
Okay.
What's happening? But Challenging is a euphemism, but okay.
Okay.
All right, everybody. Thank you.
Thank
Okay.
you so much for being here.
Thank you. See you later.